Okay, cool. So it starts off with having a username. So I am going to just go uh, Django user. That's the username. Email address Django at user.com. Right, password. Alright, and when I press enter, it's going to set up the password. Basically, all it asks for, it looks for, is a username, email address, password. These are the basic kind of fields that Django's default model has, which work perfectly fine in most cases. But for most projects, and I think if you ever do watch any other videos that I will make, I'll basically be making some sort of version of this with some additions or some other parts that I'm taking out. So we're going to start off by creating a class called user, right? And if I open up my brackets, actually, I want to open up Copilot to see if it will help me along with creating this. Let's see. I think it did, because here we need to add an abstract base user and permission. Oh, spell it correctly. Permissions mixin. Okay. We're going to import the base user and we're going to import the permissions mixin, right? And now basically, and maybe what I should explain before I go much further, I don't know if I have actually explained models, but basically in Django, what models is basically the tables that you're writing to the database, right? So currently, let's just do that. So currently, the tables that exist on this database, and I can actually see if my database will open here, right? All of these tables, auth group, group permissions, auth user, user groups, so on and so forth. And actually, before we go further, let's open up auth user. It won't have any data, but just so you can see the basic fields that Django's default user has, and its ID is the first one. There's password, last login is super user, which will be a boolean, true or false, a username field, a first name, a last name, email, is staff, is active, and date joined. This is kind of the basic information that Django asks for, and we are going to extend from that, right? So now, basically, GitHub Copilot kind of filled in all of this for me. I don't know if you had seen what I did there, that it, before I could type, or before I wanted to type rather, it had already started filling out things for me. But let's just go over each of the fields, right? So the first one is email, right? And this is models.email field. That's just when you put this in, it knows specifically to look for an email address. I'm just gonna also add, okay, no, I'll leave the max length out for now. It's not too much of an issue. Then the next thing we're gonna add is to have a first name, right? And for that, you go models character field and you put a maximum length. I don't know if I would leave it at 30. I'm from a place where we can have quite long names. I think I'm gonna do the same thing for last name and also make it 100, right? So next we've got contact or contact number, which is a character field. It's fine at 10 because in South Africa, that's sort of the length of numbers that we have, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it is a 10-digit telephone number. Right, so then we've got is staff. This is a boolean for if you are staff, it's true, if not false, and is active. Is active basically will be some sort of verification that we'll put in, and is super user kind of tells us whether you're a super user and you've got all of the access that you need. We've also got a require or a username field. So this is just to tell this normal abstract user, and actually it just added in something I do want to add, which is this date joined, because basically you do want to know as soon as a person joins. So you've got this here, which is a date time field, and auto add now just means that on the first time when this is created, it will add that time to that, and we know exactly when this person joined. Okay, cool. So yeah, username field, this is just for that part on the table where we need a username. So instead of someone having to create a username, it uses their email address as a username. So that kind of makes that mandatory. And then required fields here is first name, last name, and contact. This will make sure that it's always there. Then below we've got objects, which is the user manager, right? And this, as you can see, it's a squiggly line, and when we try to import it, it kind of wants to use the base user manager, but we actually are going to override that and create our own one, which extends from the same user manager it wants to import from, but we'll get to that now. Then we've got the str, which is the string representation. You don't need to worry yourself too much about what that means, but basically what it boils down to is that when it shows up in the Django admin or anywhere else, how will this user be represented? And because email is the username or the unique field, that's what we'll use. Then we've just got this method here for get full name. One that I also just like to add is just how to order them. So class meta ordering, date joined, GitHub Copilot filled out the rest for me, which is exactly what I wanted to do. So we'll always have it ordered by the latest person or the latest user that we have, right? This is the basic building blocks of what you will put onto most of your projects for the user. I know other people might limit this and rather create a profile, which then is kind of like a foreign key to this, which might be more efficient, but this is generally the way that I prefer to do it, right? So now let's work on getting this user manager code, and I need to put it on top of this because if I put it below, it won't inherit it. So we've got user manager, and this is from models manager, but I'm actually gonna, rather than here, import it from where Django was trying to import it. Let me just do that. And this is going to be base user manager, right? Let's just import that. Cool. And we're going to start off with the first function, which is create user, right? And yeah, these are all the fields that it's going to take in. Let me just open that up. So I think it is importing this from somewhere else, not from somewhere else, but from a different project of mine. That's the nice thing about Copilot, is that it does kind of memorize what you've been using. And just the one thing, this underscore is actually just a, let me do this. It is the get lazy text. It's just so that, you know, we don't have any issues when it comes to reading out or, you know, sending these errors when they do come up, because it can sometimes be a problem. But anyway, we've got the create user function, and as it explains here, it creates and saves a user with a given email, first name, last name, and password. So basically what this function needs is it needs self, it needs the email, the first name, last name, contact, password, and then commit. This is just something that we will have a bit later for saving this here. Then basically we run through a bunch of if statements, is that if the email is not there, that's the error we should get. If password is not there, that's the error we should get, and so on and so on and so forth, right? One thing that I must say that maybe you should recognize isn't in this user class is that there is no explicit areas for password, and that is because we're inheriting from this abstract base user, which already does require that. So just don't think that things regarding password are not handled here. They will be handled elsewhere. I think we are going to make a form for that, but you'll see what all of that means once we get there. So cool, this is basically the first function of create user, and then I'm just going to create one other function similar to this for the manager, and let's see if it knows it. Yes, it does. It's create super user. If I just wait a bit, it is going to do the same thing. So then basically all it does is that it calls the same function that we've just created, which is this create user. So follows all of the same thing. It sets the email, the password, first name, last name, contact, commits to false. Then it checks, or it creates the person as staff. It makes them active and it makes them a super user, and then it saves that person's details. So it's just an addition to what we had before for making a super user, such that we don't get a similar form to the one that we had seen before, that we get all of these kind of fields here, right? And I would say that is kind of the basics that you would have when kind of creating your user. So let's just kind of do two things quickly in addition to that, and that is just creating the admin site. And basically, if you don't know what this admin site is for or why you need to, or what we're doing here, this is basically where we're going to create what we need to see in the Django admin. And maybe let me not do it, let me first show you what the Django admin looks like without it, and then we will come to that. So basically, to do that, here's what we're going to do. We're going to run this same code again, but I'm just going to break out of it. Right, so now, okay, cool. We have got a related name because there is an issue that I have done. I have not, amongst other things, set what the user should be in settings. So how we're going to do that is we come to our main project structure, and somewhere here there should be our auth user. If it's not here, we're going to create it. I just want to make sure I'm putting it in the right place. Okay, just above the root URL configs, I'm going to add auth user model, which is going to be equal to account dot user. Save that. This probably won't work as well because I've not made my migrations yet. So I'm going to also do that, but let's just see if we still get the same error. Okay, cool. So we're getting this error, which is different from the first one. I'm not going to really go into it, but basically what I need to do next is make my migrations. And basically by making your migrations, this is kind of the magic of Django, where it is going to sort of set up the tables that you've created in models and sort of move them over to your SQL or whatever it is that you have as your database. So you start off by calling Python manage. Let me type it out properly. Manage.py make migrations. And basically what this function does is that it looks for any migrations or changes to these folders, these models.py folders, and if there are changes, then I'll show you the magic that it does for that. Okay, cool. So we run that code of Python manage.py make migrations, and basically it says it found a migration in the folder account, and it created this file, which then created this create model user. And what that does, if we come on over here to account, I don't know if you'll see we now have this folder called migrations, and just to show you that it's been added, or I think no, it might have always been there, sorry, it might have always been there, but within there, there's actually now a new file of 0001 initial.py, and this is the first initial migration folder, right? You're never going to really do anything in this file, but it is worthwhile knowing what's going on here. Without going into too many things, this dependencies just tells you what file this migration file depends on. So when it tries to make migrations, it looks for this file, or basically the order in which it does it is that it will do the first one, and then it comes to the dependencies and looks at the ones that follow after that. So this file depends on this one. So if Python or the program can't find this file, this migration file will fail, and that's an issue that you'll have if you have conflicting migrations down the line. If I do this correctly, we shouldn't have any of these issues, but we'll eventually come back to this should that be a problem. And basically what it does is that it basically starts creating the fields that it's going to put into SQL, right? And as you'll see, you've got ID, which is just the standard ID field. You've got password, got last login, we've got email, first name, last name, contact, is staff, all of these ones. Then it's groups. This is getting into Django's kind of group manager thing, which we might get to a bit later, but for now you just need to know that it sort of creates that. And then we've also got permissions, which is also linked to the group, so that stuff of is staff and is super user kind of comes into play there. So it's not really a file that you're ever going to do much with, but it's worthwhile knowing that you've got that first migration file, and that's what that first line of code does, right? So that just prepares it, and then to actually send this to your database, and how I'll show you is just by taking a look. Let's refresh the database. These are all the tables. We've got these 10 tables. So we're going to go python manage.py migrate. Okay, cool. So everything would have been migrated. If we come on over here, just to refresh, we should get our tables. And now we've got account user, which as you can see is now kind of the same thing we had before. So it didn't actually add another table. It just converted the previous table. But now we have all of the fields that we had added in. So that is now what Django will be using for the user data or information. Cool. So now I was able to do that. Point I wanted to make here is to be able to show us how to log into the admin. So to do that, we're going to create a super user. So python manage.py create super user, put in an email, first name, last name, password, and it's just gonna ask for validation because I created a pretty simple password. Okay, cool. Now when we run the server, right, this is our blog, and to get to the admin you just go /admin, should open right up. Cool, and you get to this Django admin page, right? So now with the same super user details we had, you are going to click on login, and basically this is the bare bones screen of what you will see when you log in, without creating what we're going to create in admin, right? So in the admin.py file, for each folder, it's got its own admin.py, and this is where we'll create just our ability to access the, oh sorry, that was a mistake, admin.site.register, and then we're going to import user, right, and then we just need to tell it where to get user from, and this will be from there. So now that we've added this, now when we come on over to the Django admin, we should refresh and we should be able to interact within the accounts folder. We've got users, and currently the only user we have is myself, as I've created myself as a super user, right? So this is kind of the bare bones basic part of how you're going to create the user model. I think in the next video we'll kind of go over how you can then sign up as a user and everything that goes with that. But I think for now this is where I'm going to leave it. Simple, not too hard to know or understand, but it's going to be vital for all of the other things that we do in the future, because all this information will come in handy. But yeah, for now it's been me with Black Code. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Peace.